When I lent my sister $30,000 to help her escape an abusive marriage, I thought I was saving her life. But once she had the money, she ghosted me, told the family it was a gift, and blocked me everywhere. Now, 3 years later, I've built something she never expected, a plan. One that will unravel her lies, expose her secrets, and make sure she never forgets the cost of betrayal. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm 32 years old, a software developer from Portland, Oregon. I'm not the kind of guy who holds grudges. Or at least, I didn't think I was, until my sister turned me into someone I barely recognize. Let me take you back 3 years. It was late April, and I was just finishing up a grueling product launch at my firm when I got the call. My sister, Michelle, was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She told me her husband had thrown a chair at her. That he'd screamed at their 3-year-old daughter until she wet herself. That she couldn't take it anymore. She said she was ready to leave him, but she had no money. No car. No way out. I didn't hesitate. I loved Michelle. She was my baby sister. I'd watched her get married at 24, glowing in a white dress and naive optimism. I'd been worried then. Her husband, Eric, always struck me as controlling, but I didn't say anything. It wasn't my place. Now, she was asking for help. And I had the means. I wired her $30,000 that same night. No questions asked. She called me the next day, sobbing, grateful, and promising me she'd pay every cent back. That this was a loan. That she was just trying to breathe, and that one day, she'd make it right. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? For the next few weeks, we talked almost every day. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Enrolled in therapy. Got her daughter into preschool. Started working part-time at a bookstore. She was rebuilding. I was proud of her. Then the calls slowed down. The texts got shorter. One day, I opened our message thread and saw a red exclamation mark. Blocked. No warning. No explanation. I thought it was a mistake. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I reached out to our mother, and that's when the second betrayal hit me like a freight train. She said you gave her the money, Mom said over the phone, hesitant. She told us you were just trying to be generous. I sat in stunned silence, the words refusing to make sense. I loaned her that money, I said, barely able to breathe. Well, maybe she misunderstood? Mom offered weakly. You never made her sign anything, right? No. I didn't. Because I trusted her. Because she was family. That was the beginning of my descent. For months, I spiraled. I tried to contact her in every way I could. Emails. Old friends. Facebook messages. She blocked me everywhere. Pretended I didn't exist. To the rest of the family, she painted me as petty, greedy, angry because I didn't get a thank you. And worst of all? They believed her. Most of them, anyway. What stung the most wasn't just the money, it was what she did with it. She didn't just survive. She thrived. She used my money to launch a lifestyle blog. Posted selfies in curated outfits. Started hosting women empowerment brunches. All funded by my loan, which she paraded as her own hard-won success. I watched in silence for 2.5 years. Boiling. Until I stopped grieving and started planning. Because if she thought I was just going to let it go, she forgot who I was. I write code for a living, sure, but I also solve problems. And Michelle just became the most interesting problem I've ever faced. So here's what I did. First, I created a fake identity. A woman named Cassidy Vaughn. Mid-30s. Recently divorced. Marketing background. A fan of Michelle's blog. I built an Instagram presence for Cassidy, complete with AI-generated selfies, fake DMs, curated follows, and a trail of comments on Michelle's posts. All positive, all fangirl. Michelle responded like a moth to flame. Cassidy was everything she wanted to be friends with, beautiful, broken, and adoring. Within 3 months, Cassidy was in her DMs. Within 6, she was her business partner. I began collecting data. Bank info she bragged about. Vendors she cheated. Copies she stole. Everything. And I wasn't alone. Because, as it turned out, one member of our family did believe me. Uncle Ray. Dad's brother. A corporate accountant with a long memory and a quiet grudge against Michelle for how she treated our grandmother during the will debacle. You want receipts? He said, tapping his screen. Let's get receipts. We formed a plan. This wasn't going to be a lawsuit. No court. No police. It was going to be something far more humiliating. A slow, public unraveling. The kind she couldn't block her way out of. Silence is a language. One Michelle mastered long before she ever blocked me. Growing up, she used silence like a scalpel, sharp, intentional, and impossible to ignore. When she was mad, she wouldn't yell. She wouldn't cry. She'd just vanish, no eye contact, no words. Our parents would tiptoe around her moods, acting like walking on eggshells was love. I thought that behavior was something she'd outgrow. But 3 years of being ghosted by my own sister taught me different. This time, her silence wasn't passive. It was tactical. By pretending I didn't exist, Michelle had effectively rewritten our shared history. She crafted a public image of a resilient single mom, self-made, full of trauma to triumph inspiration. Her followers adored her. She was constantly featured in local lifestyle magazines. She was even invited to speak at a women's business conference downtown, using my loan money as her launch story. She had all the ingredients of a social media darling: an aesthetic apartment, a cute kid, a tragic backstory, and curated trauma she could manipulate for content. And Cassidy Vaughn, me, was becoming her closest online confidant. "I feel like you're the only one who really gets it," she messaged one night. I stared at those words for a long time. The manipulation was so natural to her, she didn't even hesitate. But I didn't reply right away. I knew better. Michelle hated silence when it wasn't hers to wield. I waited exactly 2 days. Then I responded with, "I know what it's like to be used. People think your generosity is a weakness." Hook. Line. Sinker. She opened up even more after that. Cassidy became the friend she vented to, bragged to, schemed with. She even sent Cassidy a PDF of her upcoming e-course for female entrepreneurs she planned to sell for $499 a pop. It was plagiarized, top to bottom, from free business coaching blogs and stolen course material from Reddit threads. I traced the original content in less than an hour. That alone could ruin her. But I wasn't ready to pull the trigger. Not yet. Because I had something better. A live event. She was headlining a panel called Women Who Reclaimed Their Power, hosted in an upscale hotel downtown. I bought a VIP ticket under Cassidy's name. And I made sure to book a room under my own, on the same floor. I wasn't going there to confront her. I was going to watch her lie in real time. The night before the event, I met Uncle Ray in the hotel lobby. He brought a briefcase. Inside, documents Michelle thought were long buried. Tax records. Deposits from the $30,000. Screenshots of her claiming it was gifted. Voicemails from when she still admitted it was a loan. He also brought something else, a thumb drive. Encrypted. Password is her daughter's middle name, he said. She used it for her business license account. Sloppy. I plugged it into my laptop. What I found made my blood run cold. Michelle wasn't just a fraud. She was a thief. She'd used Cassidy, me, to brag about ghostwriting other influencers' content for a price. But she never delivered. I found email threads where she took payments from desperate single moms trying to launch their own blogs, then ghosted them. One even threatened legal action. Michelle sent a laughing emoji in response. This wasn't just about money anymore. Or family. She had become a predator. And I was done playing pretend. The next morning, I dressed in business casual and walked into the conference hall like I belonged. Michelle was at the front, in a white blazer and perfect curls, smiling like she hadn't conned half the people in the room. I took my seat. Front row. She didn't recognize me. The panel began. The moderator introduced her with buzzwords: visionary, survivor, entrepreneur. She took the mic, looked over the crowd, and began her usual monologue. My journey wasn't easy, she said. There were moments I thought I'd never escape. But someone helped me. A guardian angel, really. They gave me the strength, no strings attached. The room applauded. I smiled. Because she just gave me what I needed. A recorded lie. On video. In front of a crowd. On the record. After the panel, I left before she could spot me. Back in my hotel room, I uploaded the footage to an anonymous Dropbox. I added a folder with every piece of evidence: the emails, the plagiarized course, the fraud cases. And then, I did something Michelle would never see coming. I sent it to her 3 biggest sponsors. With a subject line she couldn't ignore. Before you renew her contract, you should see this. And then? I went silent. Because now I was the one holding the scalpel. It took less than 48 hours. That's how long it took for the first cracks to form. I was at home, drinking coffee and staring blankly at my inbox when I got the first notification. A Google alert I'd set up months ago, just in case Michelle's name ever appeared in a news article. Subject: local blogger accused of fraud and plagiarism by former clients. It was a fluff piece, at first glance. No one named names. But the comment section was ruthless. And anyone with a working knowledge of Portland's influencer scene could read between the lines. Michelle's sponsors weren't stupid. They pulled the plug quietly. No public drama. Just a slow erasure. Her affiliate links went dead, her brand ambassador roles vanished from her bios, and the conference that had just hosted her replaced her picture on their website with a generic panelist image. And yet, Michelle didn't say a word. Not online. Not to the family. Not even to her fans. Instead, she went dark, just like she had with me. At first, I thought she was regrouping. Plotting her comeback. But then I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Tanya. Our cousin. You free to talk? I called her immediately. Dan, she said without preamble, Michelle's been calling everyone. Crying. Saying someone's targeting her. She thinks it's you. My pulse quickened. And what do you think? I asked. I think she's finally getting what she deserves. Tanya was one of the few who knew the full story. She didn't say much when it all went down, didn't pick a side. But now? Now, she was angry. She told Grandma you tried to sue her. That you were unstable, Tanya said. But now she's flailing. She even tried to spin it, said she was hacked. Classic Michelle. She couldn't admit the truth even when it was burning down her house. But here's where it got interesting. Tanya had screenshots. Group texts. Voice notes Michelle left in the family chat I'd been excluded from years ago. She says you're obsessed with her. That you're trying to ruin her career out of jealousy. Jealousy? The word made me laugh out loud. As if I wanted her pretend Instagram life. As if I'd trade my integrity for fake brand deals and shallow praise. She's planning a family dinner, Tanya added. Wants to clear the air. I think she's going to try and turn the tables. Perfect. Let her. Because what Michelle didn't know was that I'd been preparing for that exact moment. I spent the next few days organizing everything. Uncle Ray helped me print a hard copy of the evidence folder. Each page was timestamped. Signed where necessary. Labeled with context. I wasn't going to yell, I wasn't going to accuse. I was just going to show them. And let her hang herself with her own lies. The dinner was held at my mother's house, a modest split-level ranch with too many decorative pillows and not enough airflow. I arrived early. Michelle wasn't there yet. Mom greeted me at the door like I was a stranger she wasn't sure she invited. I don't want drama, Daniel, she said, her eyes already darting toward the kitchen. There won't be any, I said, holding up the file folder. Just facts. She didn't respond. Slowly, the rest of the family trickled in. Tanya. Uncle Ray. A few cousins. Then, right as the lasagna hit the table, Michelle. She walked in like a wounded saint. Pale makeup, oversized sweater, her daughter clinging to her hip like a prop. Hi, everyone, she said softly, like she hadn't smeared my name for 3 years. She didn't even look at me. The meal started quiet. Polite. Too polite. Every fork scrape sounded like a fire alarm. Then, about halfway through, she sighed dramatically and stood up. I just want to say something, she began. Here we go. I know there's been rumors about me, about my business. And I don't want anyone here to believe lies spread out of bitterness. She looked directly at me now. I've tried to keep this private, but Daniel has made that impossible. Gasps. She pulled out her phone and started playing a recording, one I'd sent as Cassidy. It was edited. Cropped. Stripped of context. I gave her the money to help her rebuild. I didn't expect her to pay it back. My voice. But not my words. Not really. I waited until she finished. Then I stood. Reached into my folder. And laid out the first document. Here's the original bank transfer receipt. Marked loan in the memo line. Here's the email she sent the next morning, promising repayment. Here's a voice message from a month later where she again acknowledges it was a loan. One by one, I passed them around the table. Michelle's face started to crack. No one here wants to believe this, she said, her voice rising. He's twisting everything. He's been stalking me. I didn't say anything. I just held up a final piece of paper. A signed NDA from one of her scammed clients. Now void, because the client had gone public after Michelle violated it first by bragging to Cassidy. That was the final nail. Mom looked at Michelle like she'd never seen her before. Uncle Ray just shook his head. The silence was deafening. And for once, it wasn't a weapon Michelle could control. Michelle didn't stay for dessert. She left halfway through the awkward silence that followed her unraveling, muttering something about how none of you ever really supported me anyway, before slamming the door behind her. Her daughter cried in the car, watching her mother spiral into a meltdown that wasn't meant for a child's eyes. No one followed her. For the first time in 3 years, I felt the balance shift. The weight I'd been carrying, grief, betrayal, disbelief, had started to lift. But I knew better than to celebrate too soon. Michelle was a creature of reinvention. Humiliation didn't break her. It fueled her. And I knew she'd be back with another version of the truth. But I wasn't waiting for her this time. Now, it was my move. The day after the family dinner, I contacted an attorney. Not to sue her, that would drag on forever, cost more than it was worth, and give her too much ammunition to play the victim. No, I had something else in mind. Small claims court. $30,000 was just under the threshold in our county. No jury. No theatrics. Just facts. The attorney reviewed my file and looked up from the stack of paper with a smirk. "You have her cold," he said. "This will be open and shut." It felt clinical. Almost disappointing. But I wasn't doing this for drama. I was doing it because sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury, it's paperwork. Still, there was one loose end that bothered me. Cassidy. She'd become so real, so embedded in Michelle's world, that letting her disappear felt wrong. Unfinished. So I logged in one last time and sent Michelle a message. "Cassidy, I thought I knew who you were. I was wrong." She read it within seconds. Didn't reply. Then blocked the account. Good. She was finally done lying to at least one version of me. 2 weeks later, the court date arrived. She showed up late. Wearing sunglasses indoors. Alone. No lawyer. She didn't need one. She thought this was beneath her. The judge was a tired-looking woman in her 60s who barely glanced at Michelle before asking me to present my evidence. I kept it clean, chronological. The wire transfer. The emails. The voicemails. The NDA. A printed screenshot of her conference quote, no strings attached juxtaposed against the earlier messages confirming it was alone. Michelle tried to interrupt. The judge cut her off. "Do you have evidence to refute any of this?" Michelle stammered. "He's obsessed with me. This is harassment. He made fake accounts to stalk me." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have proof?" "No, but..." "Then sit down." It took 10 minutes. Judgment in my favor. Full repayment ordered. Garnished from her accounts if necessary. I walked out of the courthouse without looking back. But it wasn't over. The money was justice, but my satisfaction didn't come from the check. It came from knowing that Michelle's empire was crumbling brick by brick. Her sponsors had ghosted her. Her brand reputation was radioactive. Her followers were catching on. And now, legally, she was a debtor. She couldn't escape that. But just in case she tried? I made sure the court order was publicly accessible. Tanya shared it in a Portland influencers Facebook group. It spread faster than wildfire. Overnight, Michelle became a cautionary tale. The queen of curated self-love, exposed as a manipulator who stole from her own brother. She deleted her blog within the week. Cassidy got one last DM before the account vanished. "You ruined everything." I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, a strange emptiness in my chest. It was done. But justice, as I learned, doesn't heal. It just closes the door. The rest? That was up to me. You'd think that winning would feel better. I'd imagined this moment for so long, Michelle's lies dismantled, her public image scorched, her debts legally stamped in black and white. I thought I'd feel triumphant. But the truth? I felt hollow. Revenge satisfies the mind, not the heart. And mine was still bruised. Because for all Michelle's deceit, there had been love once. There had been childhood memories, blanket forts, shared secrets, birthday candles blown out side by side. She wasn't always this person. At least, I didn't think she was. But now, in the quiet aftermath, I found myself wondering, was I ever seeing her clearly? Or did she start this performance long before adulthood? I decided I needed to know. Not for revenge. For closure. So I did what I do best. I started digging. First stop, my dad's old storage unit. My father died of a stroke when I was 23. Michelle was 15. He was the buffer between her moods and the world, a quiet man, always tinkering in the garage, always gentle when Michelle stormed through the house like a hurricane. He never raised his voice. But he kept records. Always. After his death, I paid the rental fees on his unit out of respect. Never opened it. Until now. The place smelled like sawdust and time. Cardboard boxes stacked high, some labeled with masking tape in Dad's tidy scrawl. Bills, 2003. Michelle, school. Daniel, college apps. It took me 3 hours to find the box that changed everything. Label, Michelle, legal. I opened it, hands already shaking. Inside were folders. Thick ones. With dates stretching back to when Michelle was 13. I sat on the dusty concrete floor and began reading. There were school records. Incident reports. A suspension notice for stealing a teacher's wallet. A police report, filed but never pursued about a neighbor's missing jewelry, found later under Michelle's bed. Letters from school counselors. Notes from Dad's private meetings. A typed list labeled conversations to have when she's calm. My breath hitched as I flipped the pages. My father hadn't been blind. He'd just been quiet. Just like me. He had documented Michelle's lies for years. Her patterns. Her manipulations. He tried to keep it private, tried to fix her quietly. But she outgrew the walls he built around her behavior. And once he died? She was unleashed. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. This wasn't about a loan. This was a lifetime pattern, one I had ignored because I wanted to believe she was better than her worst moments. But now I saw it clearly. She was never going to pay me back. Because in her mind, she never owed anyone anything. It was always extraction, never exchange. Armed with this new perspective, I decided to complete the circle. There were still people who didn't know the truth. Michelle had burned bridges I never even knew existed, people she'd conned before she blocked me. They deserved the chance to speak. So I began reaching out. To old classmates. Former friends. Even ex-coworkers from the bookstore she worked at after her divorce. Some ignored me. Some were skeptical. But a few? A few had stories to tell. One woman, Carla, said Michelle stole $500 from a group vacation fund and blamed it on the Airbnb host. Another, Angela, said she helped Michelle get a job, only to be accused of jealousy when Michelle was fired 2 weeks later for borrowing money from the register. Piece by piece, I assembled the real timeline. Not the Instagram story. Not the curated blog persona. But the actual life Michelle lived, and the wake of damage she always left behind. By the time I was done, I had something powerful. A dossier. Thick, organized, airtight. Not for court. For the truth. And I knew exactly when to use it. Because Michelle was already trying to slither back into the spotlight. A new Instagram account. New branding. New name. Misha Ray, life design coach. I laughed when I saw it. She really thought she could reinvent herself again. Erase her past. But this time, I wasn't going to wait for her to strike. I was going to hit first. And I had the evidence. All of it. If there's one thing I learned from Michelle, it's that control over a narrative is more powerful than any courtroom verdict. She didn't just lie, she built entire identities around those lies. She didn't borrow money, she was saved by kindness. She didn't scam followers, she was an entrepreneur learning in public. Every misstep, every burn, every betrayal, she turned it into a redemption arc. And her followers? They loved it. But this time, the script would not be hers to write. This time, I was the author. She'd rebranded herself as Misha Ray, a life design coach helping women step into their feminine power. The bio was full of buzzwords: trauma healing, vibrational success, aligned income. She posted pictures of crystals, latte art, and faux candid shots with captions like, "I don't chase, I attract. And what belongs to me will find me." I rolled my eyes so hard I gave myself a headache. She had less than 1,000 followers, but engagement was decent, mostly because she was targeting people who hadn't heard her past. Yet. I spent 2 weeks preparing. Step 1, I uploaded the full dossier to a secure website under the domain Michelle Morgan Exposed. Com. No ads. No fluff. Just clean, verified, timestamped receipts. Every name was anonymized unless the person had consented to be public. Every claim was backed with evidence. Step 2. I contacted half a dozen micro-influencers in the Portland community who were actively warning their followers about online scams and frauds. I didn't tell them what to post, just gave them the link and said, do what you think is right. Step 3. I created a short, professionally designed slideshow version of the evidence. Nothing flashy. Just facts. One slide read. Before you trust a coach, check their track record. I scheduled it all for the same day. 8 a.m. on a Monday. By 10 a.m., her follower count had flatlined. By noon, she was trending locally on Twitter, under both her old name and her new alias. By 3 p.m., her site was down. And by sunset? She deleted her new Instagram account. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. But this time, silence wasn't a weapon. It was a surrender. Families started reaching out again. Some apologetic. Some defensive. Most confused. My mother called, voice trembling. Did you have to go that far? I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I just asked, would you have believed me if I hadn't? She didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. Michelle had weaponized her victimhood for years, and we all enabled it, out of fear, out of love, out of the hope that someday she'd change. But the only thing that ever changed was how polished her mask became. Now? The mask was shattered. She tried to relaunch once more, a week later. A LinkedIn post about being wrongfully targeted by a toxic sibling that garnered 3 pity comments and one very blunt reply linking the dossier. She deleted it within an hour. I never heard from her again. But I kept the site live. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because narratives matter. And when people like Michelle spin their stories unchecked, the truth gets buried with the people they hurt. This was never about vengeance anymore. It was about rewriting the record. And I wasn't done yet. Because Michelle had another secret she never expected me to uncover. One that would shake more than just her brand. It would rock our entire family. The dossier was just the surface. Buried in all those receipts and whispers was something Michelle had tried desperately to keep hidden, not just from me, but from everyone. It started as a rumor. A vague mention from Angela, the former coworker Michelle burned years ago. We were talking about Michelle's pattern of scamming when she said, "Didn't she pull something with your grandmother's estate, too?" I froze. Our grandmother, Mom's mom, passed away when Michelle was 20. At the time, Michelle was in college, barely scraping by. I remember because she sobbed for hours at the funeral, mostly about how she had no money to go back to school. What none of us knew back then was that Grandma had left behind a sizable inheritance, split 4 ways among her children. Or at least, it was supposed to be. My mother had been executor of the estate. She didn't talk much about it. Just said there were issues with the disbursement. Now I was starting to think those issues had a name. Michelle. So I started digging. Again. It took some time, but I tracked down Grandma's old attorney, now semi-retired but still reachable. I explained who I was and asked a simple question. Was Michelle ever involved in Grandma's estate distribution? There was a pause. Then a sigh. Yes, he said. More than she should have been. He didn't go into full detail, client confidentiality, but he did confirm that a large portion of the inheritance meant for one of my uncles had been redirected in the form of a short-term trust that was never repaid. Michelle convinced your mother to temporarily transfer funds to her for tuition and housing, he said. The arrangement was informal, no promissory note. We advised against it, but your mother insisted. How much? Nearly $45,000. My chest went cold. She'd been stealing from family before she even graduated. And Mom knew. This wasn't just Michelle's lie. This was a cover-up. It all made sense now. Why Mom defended her. Why she never believed me. Why she always looked like she was carrying a secret too heavy to speak aloud. She'd helped Michelle rob her own family. And now it was time for the truth to come out. I called a family meeting. Not a dinner. Not a birthday. An actual, formal meeting. Uncle Ray helped me organize it. Tanya helped get people there. We rented a small conference room at a local hotel and sent invitations to every living relative involved in Grandma's estate. Michelle was not invited. But Mom was. She showed up late, tense, like she already knew the walls were closing in. "Daniel," she said, Clutching her purse, "What is this?" "You'll see," I said, and nodded to Uncle Ray. He dimmed the lights, the projector clicked on. And I presented everything. The loan. The fraud. The fake personas. The rebrand. And finally, the estate money. At first, the room was silent. Faces blank. Processing. Then came the questions. "Wait, you loaned her $30,000? She told me you cut her off. Mom, did you really give her grandma's share?" My mother crumbled. I thought I was helping her. She shouted. She was struggling, and no one else would step up. "But you never told us," Ray said. "You let her take from us." "It was temporary." "Is it still temporary?" I asked. 15 years later? That shut the room up. Mom broke down. She confessed. Everything. How Michelle had manipulated her, threatened self-harm, weaponized guilt to extract money. How she'd begged her not to tell anyone, claimed it would ruin her future if the family knew. So Mom stayed silent. Just like me. Until silence became complicity. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I just sat back and let them all finally see what I'd seen for years. The real Michelle. Not a victim. Not a survivor. A con artist in soft lighting. The meeting ended with a vote, unofficial, symbolic, but powerful. Michelle was to be cut off. Completely. No more invites. No more money. No more silence. I walked out of that room with the weight finally lifting. Because sometimes, justice isn't about payback. Sometimes, it's just about ending the cycle. You don't plan for the moment when the person who betrayed you finally breaks. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you stop waiting for it. You accept that they'll keep spinning, keep lying, keep finding new angles to protect their ego. So when the ruin finally comes, it almost feels anticlimactic. But it wasn't. Not with Michelle. Her collapse was as theatrical as her fake online life. And I watched it happen not through confrontation, but through the slow, viral spread of truth. After the family meeting, the fallout hit her like a storm. Every uncle, every cousin, every friend of a friend who had once given her the benefit of the doubt now had the full picture. She wasn't a misunderstood little sister. She was a serial manipulator. And they weren't quiet about it. People talked. And Michelle, for once, couldn't stop the story from spreading. I didn't start it. I didn't have to. The family had receipts now. And when people are given the truth, the real truth, they can't unsee it. Her fragile rebrand as Misha Ray began crumbling in forums and DMs. Posts from local freelancers started appearing on LinkedIn and Reddit, telling eerily similar stories: unpaid contracts, vague excuses, emotional manipulation, ghosting. She tried to delete comments. Tried to gaslight the few who confronted her directly. But when screenshots came flooding in from all corners, even her most loyal followers started asking questions. And then came the final blow. A YouTube video. Not mine, someone else's. A mid-sized creator known for exposing scammy coaches and grifters. They found the dossier through one of the micro-influencers I'd contacted. The video was titled, "The Truth About Misha Ray, Coaching, Scams, and Family Secrets." I watched it 3 times. It was brutal. 22 minutes of calm, researched breakdowns. Direct quotes from Michelle's own posts. Redacted testimonials from people she'd burned. Footage from her panel speech compared to text messages from the same week. Voice memos. Old blog posts that contradicted her timeline. And finally, a link to the public court documents. Over 400,000 views in 5 days. Comments flooded in. I followed her for years and always felt something was off. This is why I stopped trusting self-help influencers. She blamed her family and made a business off their silence. Michelle didn't respond. She couldn't. Anything she said would just confirm it. The Instagram rebrand was deleted. Her LinkedIn scrubbed. The coaching website, gone. All that remained was the wreckage. But the part that caught me off guard was how quietly it ended. No big confrontation. No email. No apology. Just disappearance. She moved out of her apartment. Deleted her email. Stopped answering her phone. Even her daughter's father, Eric, called me asking if I'd heard from her. She took off, he said. Left a note saying she needed space. Said everyone was against her. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the sleepless nights. The lost money. The years of being painted as the villain. The way she used her own child as a shield. The way she blocked me instead of owning a single shred of guilt. This wasn't exile. This was consequences. Still, I knew her well enough to know, this wasn't the end. People like Michelle don't just vanish. They hibernate. Recalculate. Wait for the next opportunity to become someone new. And I was ready for that. Because the receipts didn't disappear. They were archived. Backed up. Immutable. Truth has a funny way of surviving even the best efforts to bury it. Michelle may have escaped, for now. But she couldn't rewrite the ending. That pen was in my hand. 3 months passed. Long enough for the dust to settle, for the inbox notifications to slow, and for Michelle to become a ghost. Not literally, she was still alive, still breathing somewhere out there. But in the digital world she had ruled with curated selfies and fake empowerment, she was a memory. Her face no longer popped up in my feed. Her name had stopped trending. Even the YouTube video that once burned like wildfire had been buried by the internet's endless churn. But I kept the bookmarks. Just in case. Because silence, I'd learned, doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. And I knew Michelle well enough to recognize when she was rebuilding. So when a new Instagram account appeared with the username at @noom_ray and a profile pic that was just a vague silhouette on a beige background, my alarm bells rang. The bio read. Healing isn't linear. But I'm walking my path, with truth and love. It had 3 followers. One of them was a lifestyle account run by a woman I knew Michelle had once collabed with before everything fell apart. I tapped through the posts. Minimalist quotes. Stock images. A few shots of a woman's hands journaling, never her face. The captions were careful, cautious, but if you knew her voice, if you'd lived under her manipulation, you could hear it loud and clear. She was testing the waters. She was soft launching herself. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, heart pounding, not with fear, but with this deep, simmering recognition. The facade was being rebuilt. But this time? She wasn't hiding from me. She was daring me. And I accepted. I started with the watermark on one of the photos, sloppy, partially cropped out, but still visible. A quick reverse image search led me to the original source, a blog post from a lifestyle site Michelle used to write for under a pseudonym. There it was. Her writing style. Her flair. Her obsession with overused phrases like holding space and emotional sovereignty. Still pretending to be someone she wasn't. Still using half-truths as tools. Still thinking no one would notice. But I did. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite her story again. Not this time. I logged into a burner account and left a single comment on one of the posts. Truth and love start with accountability. Where's yours? She deleted it within minutes. But not before a few people saw it. One messaged me privately, curious. Another replied publicly before their comment vanished too. Wasn't this account linked to someone exposed for coaching fraud? The cracks started to form again. And for the first time, I didn't have to do anything. The community remembered, the ones who had once been conned, the single moms, the freelancers, the lost women looking for hope, they remembered. And this time, they didn't need a dossier. They just needed a reminder. Within a week, the account was deactivated. Michelle had tried to rise from the ashes, but she didn't realize those ashes had teeth now. Every time she tried to breathe life into a lie, the truth swarmed in. Because her downfall wasn't a moment, it was a pattern. And everyone knew the pattern now. The facade hadn't just cracked. It collapsed. And when it did, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. Resolved. I had become the guardian of a truth Michelle could no longer outrun. Not because I shouted the loudest. But because I never stopped watching. And when the time came, I was ready, with evidence, with memory, with the kind of quiet fury that doesn't burn out. It was almost over. Almost. One final piece remained. And this time, she wouldn't see it coming. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But they never talk about what comes after. The cold fades. The adrenaline burns out. The noise dies down. And what you're left with is the wreckage. Not just of the person you exposed, but of the parts of yourself that broke to make it happen. I thought the story was over. Michelle had disappeared again, her attempts to relaunch her identity shattered by her own echo. The family had disowned her, not with rage, but with something worse. Indifference. Even my mother stopped speaking her name. But something still lingered. Not bitterness. Not hate. Restlessness. Because closure, as I learned, isn't passive. It's not something you sit back and receive like a courtroom judgment or a long overdue apology. Closure is a choice. And I had one last choice to make. It came in the form of an email. From her daughter. At first, I didn't recognize the name, Leah Morgan. 14 years old now. Using her school account. Subject line, "Hi Uncle Daniel." I froze. I read the email twice before I believed it was real. She wrote, "I know this is weird. Mom doesn't know I'm writing you. But I found stuff online, and I think I need to know the truth. She told me you tried to hurt her, but nothing adds up. I just want to understand. Please." I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart thudded, slow and heavy. Because this was the endgame. Michelle was never going to apologize. Never going to own her lies. But her daughter? She was looking for truth in the ruins. And if I ignored her, I'd become the thing Michelle always claimed I was: bitter, cruel, unwilling to forgive. So I responded. Not with documents. Not with accusations. Just the story. I told Leah about the loan. The block. The silence. The persona. The collapse. I told her how much I loved her mom once. How much I wanted to believe in her. And how much it hurt to watch that love rot. I ended the email with, "You don't have to choose sides. But you deserve to know what shaped your life. What your mother survived, and what she inflicted. I don't hate her. I just won't forget." She didn't reply for days. Then one night, I got a short message back. "Thank you. I think I understand now. I'm sorry for what she did." I cried. Not for Michelle. For the girl she raised. The girl who'd been fed curated stories, just like her audience. The girl brave enough to look behind the curtain. That was my real closure. Not a court win. Not a viral takedown. But truth passed to the next generation, with nothing asked in return. A final receipt. Paid in full. And with that, I let it go. I deleted Cassidy's accounts. Took the dossier offline. Removed the bookmarks, the rage, the heartbreak, the betrayal. It would always be part of my story. But it wouldn't define me anymore. I had rebuilt my own life, quietly, away from the noise. I didn't need applause. I didn't need Michelle to suffer. I had peace. And she had silence. But this time? It wasn't a weapon. It was a sentence. And she was the one serving it.